Hello, this is Charlie Pellerin, the founder and president of 4D Systems. I want to take you through how to do our workshops by animating the slide sets that I would use. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the introduction, and we're going to go through the four forces nature gave us and the fifth force that is man-made. And I'm going to look at who are you here to change, yourself or other people. This is for workshop people. The agreements we're going to make with you. You're going to share something personal to enhance trustworthiness. This is the normal lead-off slide that I use. The slide I just presented, I frequently would not show. It's only for your benefit, although we will show these later on in the workshop. I like to leave this slide up just like it says and not comment more about it until we get to the group rooms kind of filling up and we're ready to start. I animate in and tell them that it's team social context. You know, there actually is a fifth force in astronomy that's been postulated from time to time. And if you have any astronomers or scientists in the audience, they might know about it and ask you. It's another form of gravity, but it's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the fifth force that drives human behavior. This is a really important slide because the workshop's an important event, no doubt about it. But I'd like to bring people's attention to the fact that the workshop is part of an integrated set of processes, and perhaps the most magical one is the one that will begin to change your team's behaviors with a gentle, invisible force field, moving everyone toward the behaviors of low-risk, high-performance teams. The switch, the term I've used here for a metaphor, a 4D development assessment, takes about 15 minutes online and boosts most teams' performance 5% every time you implement it, or in my metaphor, throw it. Why not all teams? Because teams that are up near the top have no room to grow. It's a very powerful thing. In fact, teams up near the top, if they do this recurrently every 4 to 6 months for long-term teams, you will sustain the high performance. Okay, the fundamental forces. You're all familiar with the gravity force. It's one of nature's fundamental forces. I'm going to assign it a value of unity 1 to compare it to the other forces. It's very, very weak, but it has its influence through its infinite range. In fact, it diminishes as 1 over the distance squared for any point source. And so that's force number 1. The second force is the weak force, not of interest to anybody except physicists. It defines how radioactivity works, for example, nuclear processes, and it has a value of 10 to the 25th times gravity. So why is it called the weak force? I'll show you momentarily. And that kind of blue face in the bottom, just to show you this comes from Mother Nature, and we work within these forces but can't change them. The next force, and I think you're familiar with this, the electromagnetic force. I've shown here a depiction involving 2 magnets. But actually the force does far more than that. It is the fundamental force that causes all processes of interest to us, everything from giving rigidity to material. It's very small imbalances in electromagnetic forces that do that, all the way down to everything on a molecular level, biology, everything else is driven by the electromagnetic force. Just an interesting little fact. It's a 10 to the 36. That's 10 with 36 zeros behind it, more powerful than gravity. Now you can begin to see why the weak force has this name. The next force is the strong force, or nuclear force. It's interesting only to nuclear physicists and engineers. It's incredibly strong. However, it has only very short range, and so you don't encounter it in everyday life. It's another 100 times more strong when it's close enough to be active than the electromagnetic force. Finally, the fifth force, and it's an incredibly powerful force because unmanaged, if you create what we call putting good people in bad places or a flawed team social context, you will have disasters irrespective of how competent the individuals are. And I'm going to take you through some of the more famous ones point by point to show you this. And conversely, if you manage it, fifth force puts good people in good places, creates high performance, lowers risk of failure, which is that icon in the middle with the guy on the tightrope, and it creates competitive advantage. So isn't it worth learning how to do this? That's what we're here to do today, to build green, powerful, good places to put good people in. And you can see the symbol for the man-made. I picked this set of islands, man-made islands in Dubai, because it's quite obvious that they're man-made. I've actually been there. I was in Dubai a couple of years ago at the invitation of a client and made a number of speeches there. That's clearly something man-made. Nature did not make that island, no doubt. I assigned the fifth force the power of infinity because when we're interested in human behavior, it trumps everything else. It trumps how good individuals are. It just simply is the most powerful force with regard to what our topic is here, team performance and individual leadership ability. So you don't think about it a lot, but you experience gravity every day and you adjust for it unconsciously. And the electromagnetic force, you don't even realize probably when you push against the table, that's the force that's active. But I don't think you really have a easy understanding of the fifth force. So if you'll play along with me here, and this is what I would do in a workshop, I'm going to give you hopefully a fifth force experience, or an experience where you will change your behavior when you experience a change in context. So let's set the story up and see if this is familiar to many of you. You had a hard day. For me, I'm traveling to Washington, D.C. a lot. Last time I was there, it was 105 degrees. I had to get up very early for some important meetings. I live in another time zone. I'm stressed, fatigued. Got the last flight out for Dulles Airport, nonstop to Denver. And I've got a first-class upgrade free from United. I fly so much with them. These things come around now and then. I leave for the airport in plenty of time, and I hit the famous Washington Beltway traffic jams. Dead stop traffic, 5 miles an hour. Finally get to Dulles, rush through the terminal, look at my watch. I can just about make my flight. It's going to be good. So I get in the security line. It's going real slowly, and somehow they pull me out for attention, and they bring me off to the side and set me there. And they're doing this to a lot of people. There aren't enough agents to take care of it. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm looking at my watch, waiting for someone to come. They finally come and do this frisk of me. Of course, there's nothing there. I think, oh my God, I'm going to miss this flight. So I run through the terminal full speed, heading for the airplane gate. And as I arrive, there it is, gone. Well, that's the last non-stop. So now I'm on flights to stop, go to Chicago and fly on. I'm waiting for 3 or 4 hours for that flight to come. It's a tight connection there. I might not make it on even, and then I'll spend the night in Chicago. My frustration is building and building. I finally get on a plane. No first class on this one. I'm in the back of the plane, 2 rows ahead of a stinky toilet. The seatbelt light comes on. I buckle up as I'm supposed to. The plane backs up and starts a taxi. About the time we're taxiing down toward the active runway, I feel this thud, thud, thud in my back. And some little girl behind me is kicking my seat, and boy, am I getting angry. And I realized that what I'd like to do is go stare down the guy behind me and tell him exactly what I think of this and how miserable he's making me. But I know that if I jump up in my state of mind and start creating a panic, I might have a real chance of spending the night in jail. So I wait. It's a long cruise out. There's thunderstorms in the area, and finally the seatbelt light turns off, and I turn around, face the father, ready to smack him. I say, your daughter is kicking my seat and making me crazy. I can't stand it. It's not right, and I demand you stop this immediately, or I will take further action. The guy looks up at me and says, oh, sir, I'm so sorry. That's how thoughtless of me. You're right. I wasn't paying any attention, and my daughter's been acting kind of strange. You know, we're just returning from her mother's funeral. Her mother got killed in a car accident and about 10 days ago, and we've both been so upset I've been beside myself. I am so sorry. I really am. This will stop immediately, and I apologize profusely for your inconvenience. You didn't deserve it, and I'm really sorry it happened. My God, now I've gone from anger to feeling ashamed. This is the fifth force, a change in social context, changed my mindset, and now I'm apologizing too. I'm so sorry too. Okay, hopefully that worked for you. It's kind of a fun thing to do. Now I'd like to continue along with our workshop and point out to you, you've got 2 really important reference documents. My book, How NASA Builds Teams, tracks the workshop chapter by chapter. In fact, I'll show you later, I think a really interesting, unique feature of our processes is the way the all of them address the same core material. So if we go through the workshop, you'll see references to the book chapter by chapter. What the book has let me do is over the years move more and more into an experiential space. That is to say, you doing exercises and less of me lecturing, which is uncomfortable for everybody after a while, I think, because you can read the book and get the intellectual background material there. I tell you just enough to make sense and then reference the book because it follows it right along. The second thing is that you'll be doing a whole lot of exercises here that generate data. And as you do this, I'd like you to record these in your workbook because you're going to want to look back at them later. When I talk to people who've been in workshops years ago, they consistently report they look back and the work they did and used it over and over and over. So those are your two reference documents. This is kind of a fun thing I like to do. I ask the workshop participants, raise your hand if you've had success changing other people. And by the way, every time I ask someone to raise their hand, I raise mine in kind of a gesture of neuro-linguistic programming because it makes it easier for other people to raise their hand to see you raising yours. And normally no hands get up. Then I play a little more and say, okay, raise your hand if you've had success changing your spouse. Once again, no hands go up. But in one workshop recently, a lady raised her hand and said, I've had success changing my spouse. I said, how'd you do it? She said, divorce. And I said, no, that's not what we're talking about. And we all got a good laugh out of it. So again, mindset is everything. We're going to see this over and over and over. A synonym for mindset is attitude. I like the word mindset better. And the mindset I want you to adopt for this workshop is that you're here to change you. Every time you drift off into trying to change someone else, I'm going to call you on it. Then I jokingly tell workshop participants, if you wanted the workshop to change other people, it's down the hall. It's not this one. So it's kind of a fun, whimsical thing. Now, the next thing we're going to do experientially is we're going to establish some agreements that we're all going to keep during this workshop for two reasons. One is I want everybody to have an efficient and enjoyable workshop experience. That's important. But an equally important reason is that you're going to be keeping a personal keeping agreements log or inquiry as we go through about how and when you're breaking agreements. Because I want you to see that if you casually break simple agreements like these, you probably break bigger agreements, and how you keep your agreements is the behavior that's central to your trustworthiness. Now, at every break, I'm going to tell you how long the break's going to be and ask you if you're okay with that, and you probably will be. And by the way, I'll have a 10-minute break, typically every 50 minutes. It might adjust a little bit if it turns out the timing gets off somehow. And as soon as we break, a countdown clock will go up on the screen projected from my computer. And it will count down at lunchtime and each break slowly by time down to 0. I'd like you to agree that before the countdown clock gets to 0, that you'll be seated and ready to go in your seat so we can start the workshop with everybody on time. So I ask people, raise your hand if you agree. People usually will. And that little icon in the lower left is a signal to your second chair to have a flip chart up, and the second chair will record these agreements as we go. So they'll write on the flip chart, or sometimes they'll do it ahead of time, in your chair, seated and ready to go when the countdown clock gets to 0. That's agreement 1. This is not an agreement we formalized, but I want to tell you that having said that you've got to be in your seat ready to go, I want you to feel free to be able to move around thereafter. You know, whoever said sit still and learn is a bunch of nonsense. All the research shows that humans over their evolution have learned best when they're moving. Otherwise, our species wouldn't exist. So once we've started the workshop and you're seated in your chair, feel free to get up, go in the back of the room. If there's coffee there or water, help yourself. But also about every mid-period, like every 25 or 30 minutes, I'm going to ask us all to get up and stretch or move some muscles. Preferably, you'll do some squats like this lady here is. Here's what this is about. There's an interesting book I read some years ago called The First 20 Minutes, written by the physical science editor, the physical development wellness editor for the New York Times. And she said that the most deadly thing in your life is your office chair. Your blood, as you sit still in your chair, accumulates toxins that are very bad for you. And the best thing you can do is every 20 to 30 minutes, get up, move some muscles, get that blood flowing, clean that blood out. So we're going to get up every 20 or 30 minutes, and I'll stretch and move and ask you to. I think you'll find this is fun. Everybody likes doing this. Agreement number 2, pay attention. And so 2 parts to this agreement. 1, when class is in session, I'd like you to agree that you won't use your PDAs, no emails, no phone calls. And so because I know many of you want to stay in touch or need to stay in touch, this is another reason we'll have a 10-minute break every 50 minutes so you can go out in the hall or go to your desk, check your email, tag up on things. The second piece of paying attention to what's going on in the room, listening to me speaking, whoever has the floor, is that I want you to agree to have no side conversations. Now, I'd like to make an additional agreement with you that if you're having a side conversation, and I notice it, and I probably will, I would like your permission to be able to ask you what you're talking about. Now, you always can pass, but my assumption is that if it's important enough to you that you're willing to break an agreement to do it, it's probably something interesting enough to share with the group. Raise your hand if you agree with agreement 2 about attentiveness. Great, thank you very much. All the hands went up. Now, agreement 3 is about how you participate and how you manage the participation of your colleagues. I'd like you to agree to offer your perspective at least 5 times during the course of the workshop. Let me show you why. Here's what we're here to do. The workshop takes my knowledge of 4D systems and processes and my management background and expertise and combines it with your expertise and content of your specific issues and needs, and we blend those 2 things together, and our progress line goes right up this chart. The first thing we'll do are 3 team-level diagnostics. The second thing we'll do is process one of your elephants in the room with the context-shifting worksheet. Now, there are occasions where people just like to talk, and I understand this, and they want to blabber about something that has no relevance to the workshop or nothing that can be processed with 4D systems processes just to hear themselves talk, and I'm sure you have people like this in your team. This, my friends, is a missed opportunity. You cannot afford to let this happen. And so from this day forward, we're going to have you ask you to learn to manage the speaking space in this workshop and on your team. I want you to find the red card on your desk. Anytime someone's going off into something irrelevant or something that's taken us away from what we're trying to do here together in our short time, I'd like you to pick up your red card and hold it up. That's a statement that says we got to stop this nonsense and continue. So this works, and I'd like you to think about taking this back at work if you have this problem. I think when I watch people do this, what's fascinating is usually when one red card goes up, half a dozen of them. And by the way, I'm not immune from this either. If I get onto something that doesn't make sense or off topic, you think, stop me too. We're all in this together. So can we all agree that you're going to manage the speaking space 2 ways? You're going to make sure you contribute, and I'm asking you to agree to for 5 times in the next 2 days to say something. 2 days because we'll score the agreements about the middle of start early in day 3. And then the second thing is, if things are getting off topic and people just talking for the sake of hearing themselves talk, you use your red card. Raise your hand if you can. Thank you very much. Okay, we all agree. Now, it's a really important thing to get in the habit of learning to renegotiate agreements before you break them. So if you have to be absent from the workshop, you just come in and tell me that's the case, and I'll probably recommend some things you might be able to read while you're gone, or if you have to break any of the agreements, you go ahead and renegotiate it. But while you've got the agreement standing, don't break it. The reason is this is central to your integrity and trustworthiness. Integrity means integral connection between words and action. How important is trustworthiness for you to succeed in your whatever you do? I think most people would say it's central. It's major. It's the big thing. Okay. You have other cards on your desk. I want you to find the green card and tell me what you think that's for. And several people probably say go. And I said, that's right. And so here's what we're going to do. When I make a point that I think is really important, I'm going to ask you to do a card check. And I won't proceed until everyone or nearly everyone shows me a green card that you got the point. I think it's much more powerful to have you make an expressive statement that you got it than just for me to ask, did everybody get it, have you just sit there. Okay, great. I want you to find the yellow card. What do you think that's for? And most people will say caution. And I say, well, not exactly. The yellow card has a biological meaning. And so if you've got to leave in between the breaks and go to the bathroom, please just flash the yellow card and walk out the door, and I just know that you're not leaving the workshop, that you're only going to the bathroom. So I don't want anyone in the room feeling like this image here. So use the yellow card if you have to leave, no problem. Take care of yourself. We all okay? Excellent. Now come on up and sign your agreements. Everybody, walk up and sign them. After they sign the agreements, we post them on the wall where they can see them, and we may point them out occasionally that this is what you've agreed to do, and do it or you're out of integrity. Great. Okay. Now we're continuing on with this early workshop phase with exercises that involve you and engage you rather than just listening to us. And this is a fun exercise people really enjoy around building trustworthiness in another way. Sharing something personal enhances your trustworthiness. And if you ever thought about this, this works very, very powerfully. So we're going to do an exercise earlier in our workshop to enhance your trustworthiness with each other. I want you to write something about yourself that might surprise your colleagues on one of the white 3x5 cards. By the way, things that are gender switches are always kind of fun, like a female skydiver or a guy who's been in the ballet or something, if you've done something like that. And try and pick something that people won't easily guess, that might not be always easy. Some of you might have a little difficulty. One person in a workshop said, you know, Charlie, I said, there's not one interesting thing in my whole life. I said, that's fascinating. Write that down. Now I want you to understand what we're going to do. We're going to collect your cards. We're going to read them aloud, and we're all going to try and guess who you are. So if you can make it a little bit mysterious, that's a lot of fun. We'll wait a little while. If no one can guess after 10, 15 seconds, we're going to ask you to fess up, come clean, say who you are. Now, after either someone in the room identifies who you are, or we ask you to fess up who you are, the next thing is you're going to stand up. It's important to stand. And I want you to tell the group the results you are accountable to produce. Why are we doing this? I love this expression, where attention goes, power flows. And as we go through the workshop, you're going to see the central role of accountability in performance. I want you to begin to think more about your own accountability. This is the key to success across the board. Okay, so now we would collect all the cards, shuffle them. Usually my second chair will read them, and people will stand up. People will try and guess who they are, and then we'll ask you to stand up and say what you're accountable to produce. Okay. That's our introduction. I'm going to pause here and complete this little video. Robert will convert these into YouTube videos. We'll post them on our website. You can go there and watch them anytime. The next segment has a really interesting piece around failures and what causes them. I'm going to take you through what caused the Space Shuttle Challenger to explode, what caused Hubble's mirror flaw, what caused Korean Airlines to crash, what caused Fukushima Daiichi Plant No. 1 to explode. We're going to look at magnetic fields as a metaphor to the fifth force social context. I like taking social constructs and explaining them with more familiar physical metaphors because it's easier to understand. The social world is much less mysterious, at least to me, than the physical world. Or the social world is much more mysterious than the physical world, unless you have a metaphor. Then we're going to show you about how we do simultaneous context-driven leader development, which can develop hundreds of people simultaneously. Then we're going to ask you to identify an uncomfortable reality, what we call elephants in the room, and you'll do this anonymously. We'll collect them up, we'll organize them, you'll go through a process and pick one to process as a team in the workshop. Then I'll show you the AMBER process, our core learning process: attention, mindset, behavior, results. Throughout the workshop, I'll bring your attention to something you're not used to thinking about. You'll have a mindset shift or attitude shift about it. You'll practice the behavior or learn how to do the behavior, and when you do it, you'll get a positive result. That's what's coming up, and what we just went over, the 5 fundamental forces who you're here to change in our workshop agreements. So again, go to www.nasateambuilding.com. These will be up there, I'm sorry, just in English, but you can maybe have someone listen and translate them if you want, whatever. It's a nice verbal instruction. There's a companion document called the 3-Day Presenter's Guide, which has the same material as I've gone over, but written out in more depth and detail. So if you want more background, you can have it. That winds up segment 1. Thank you for listening, and I'll be doing segment 2 soon. Bye.